There's no such thing as overnight success. Anybody that is telling you that is trying to sell you something to boost their overnight success. Don't believe it. There's no such thing as overnight success in anything you do.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Melting Pot, where we talk to thought provoking leaders and entrepreneurs who bring in a lot of value to this show. And today I am in conversation with Sean Kling. Sean has had decades of real world experience. He's mastered the art of outworking, outthinking, and outlasting the competition. He's the CEO of the Aria Group, author of Outwork Them All. He's a master of scaling businesses, leadership development, and strategic growth. And also, as I understand, has a travel channel on YouTube. So we're going to talk about all of that with you today, Sean. Thank you for joining me on Melting Pot.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, Sean, your philosophy actually cuts through the fluff. What do you believe is the biggest misconception that entrepreneurs have about success? I'm just going to straight dive into the conversation about how you guide entrepreneurs.
So I would say the biggest misconception that entrepreneurs have is sustainability. Success is the actual sustainability of their business. Most people go into a business as a passion project. Maybe they worked for somebody else or they saw something else and they wanted to learn more about it. And they said, okay, I'm going to have a grass mowing business. I'm going to do landscape because I've done landscape. I love working outside, and they go and they do this business and they hate it because they're not doing what they love. They're actually running a business. So there's this misconception out there that getting in business is the answer to all your problems. And actually, it takes a special person to own a business and to do the business things outside of the actual physical service or product that you provide to your customers. I'd say that's the biggest thing that I run into.
Okay. And how do you personally define resilience and how can entrepreneurs actually build it effectively?
So resilience comes with time and experience. We've all seen these tech gurus or people that go out and they start a YouTube channel or invent an app or a social media platform, and they're 22 years old and they become billionaires overnight. That's not the average person. Resilience is constantly failing but learning from your mistakes. Every single successful business person, I don't care if you own a dry cleaning business in downtown Chicago or you're Jeff Bezos and you own Amazon, you failed along the way. Resilience is how you handle your failures and spring back and use it as a learning tool, a learning guide, and a way to overcome objectivity and failure.
Yeah, that's true. So I think it's important to be able to not nothing success doesn't come without failure. And if it comes to you too quickly, then the way you go up, you can come crashing down as well because you haven't really learned the hard way up. And that's where the resilience comes in, is my understanding of what you're saying. So, Sean, we were just talking about resilience as far as the entrepreneurs are concerned. A lot of the business coaches talk about overnight success. What is your response to that notion?
It's a fugazi. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as overnight success. Anybody that is telling you that is trying to sell you something to boost their overnight success. Don't believe it. There's no such thing as overnight success in anything you do.
Correct. And yeah, and we were just talking a little bit earlier about how without failure, there can be no success because then you haven't really seen what it means to struggle. And I think the benefit that you get out of that it has far more results as compared to you just getting something on a platter. No, you're absolutely right. So, how, what kind of strategies do you provide to your clients?
So the first thing I do is I'm a no BS, no fluff type of guy. Okay, I'm not going to try to sell you something that's not going to help you. I'm not going to try to sell you a product that's going to line my own pockets. There's plenty of these type of people out there, and they will take advantage of you. So the services I provide is a lot of people don't have a mentor. A lot of people don't have somebody they can vent to. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, don't vent to your employees. Don't vent to your coworkers. You need to talk to somebody that can look at things objectively, and that's where I come in. Sometimes we're our own worst critic. We're always our own worst critic, but also we're our own worst enemy because when you're at the top and you don't have anybody to run ideas through, you tend to make mistakes that can be preventable by having a second set of eyes that helps you out. And that's, where I come in is I'm going to come in with an objective view. I'm not going to try to sell you a course. I'm not going to try to sell you a t-shirt. I'm not going to try to sell you my book. Hey, you want to buy my book? Great. If you don't want to buy my book, it doesn't matter. I'm going to teach you how to be a little bit more objective, how to open up to somebody and give you a person that will work with you, maybe be like Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. I'm going to be your conscience. Let your conscience be your guide.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So, when you look at a business, what are some of the red flags that you see that tell you that this business is on the verge of stagnation?
People pleasing. People pleasing.
Ah,
There's a lot of myths out there today that, and I don't know who's spreading it, but one of my biggest gripes as a business owner, and I see this a lot with other business owners as a red flag, treat your employees when they'll take care of you. A good boss always takes care of his people. And on the surface, when I say that, it sounds bad, right? It sounds, hey, this guy just is trying to exploit me. He doesn't care. But one of the biggest red flags I see with business owners is trying to appease their employees all the time at the sake of their own growth, at the sake of their own expansion. Because you got to remember something. When you're an entrepreneur, I don't care if you have 1,000 employees or you have one person. Employees are paid salary, commission, whatever, an hourly wage, whatever that may be. They're paid this money. But at the end of the day, they're getting a paycheck. You, as the boss, as the owner, might go months, years without seeing any money. You have to pay yourself first, and you have to, don't abuse your employees. Don't get me wrong. I don't go for the abusing employees. But at some point, you took the risk. You have to reap the benefits and the rewards, even if it's something small and minute. Like I said, I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but that's one of my biggest red flags is you're paying somebody for a service, just like your clients are paying you for a service. Okay, so you're paying somebody, and if they're not performing or they're not getting things done, you have to either rework something, but don't continue to pacify them because they could be the cancer in your business that that is hurting it. I have very good employees, but I'm going to tell you what, I probably went through 50 people in 5 years to work for me that didn't meet. Now I have some good people that meet my requirements and are very loyal and I take care of them, but I learned the hard way by continuing giving people money, giving people time, giving at the sake of me and my family. And at the end of the day, you're they're actually more of a business owner than you are when you're giving them everything and you're not keeping anything for yourself. You've taken the risk, you've mortgaged the home, you've borrowed the money, and that's one of the biggest red flags I see.
okay. And are there any other red flags?
Yeah, sure. Other red flags are not keeping financial ability, overextending yourself, taking out loans, and something that's not researched. So if I'm going to sell a widget, but it's not researched, and I say I want to sell this widget and I want to take 20,000 American dollars to invent this widget, and there's no research behind it, you're overextending yourself. You have to be careful on how you overextend yourself dealing with new things, whether it be products or services. Stick with what you know best and use those things. It's like the dating world. Compliment yourself. Okay. If something complements, so if just for instance, let's say I'm an air conditioning repair guy and I fix air conditioners around residential properties. I might not want to do windows and doors because that's not my specialty. But if I can get something that complements myself, let's say I do air conditioning repair, but maybe add electrical work in there where I can change some light bulbs out. That's semi-related to the home maintenance world. So you want to research, you want to make sure that you're doing the right things. And if you're overextending yourself or you're all over the place, that's a red flag. This is because you're not concentrating on what makes you money. If you're not happy what you're doing, find something that's going to make you money and don't live a pipe dream. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs do that because we watch YouTube, we see Facebook, these guys are on there, hey, I invented this, I can make you $1 million, watch my course. Guess what? Those who can't do, teach. That's how they're making their money.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So if there's anything that you want to do, essentially make sure that you've absolutely researched it and you have a solid base before you step into that world, and rather than just watching other people's success or not. People may show you that they're successful, but because of the way they brand themselves, but they not necessarily have those skills. They may not. And you just tend to follow because you're so enamored by what they are portraying to you and saying to you. Yeah. So that's like a marketing gimmick. So
Yeah,
essentially,
the shiny objects.
yeah,
People are
just
chasing shiny objects.
true. So you just have to be true to yourself, do a lot of research, and then again, one step at a time. Don't try and just get to the top without having gone through the multiple steps or the layers. And yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about your book, Outwork Them All. So you emphasize discipline. How do you maintain your own edge? Because you've mentioned that you have a company yourself. So again, you're talking about discipline, and we've been at, if you really think about it, so far this entire conversation has been about how you need to be disciplined in terms of the steps you take, in terms of the different kind of things that you do, which could be red flags. So it's all in a sense discipline, right?
So discipline, how do I stay disciplined is guess what? I don't always stay disciplined. Any business owner that tells you that they always stay disciplined is full of it. They don't. There are days I lax off, and there are times I wake up at 2 in the morning and say, "Oh man, I didn't do this. I got a quick run out on the computer." Look, it happens. Okay. This myth of the well-disciplined entrepreneur that reads 20 books a month and that works 80 hours a week. Guess what? It's a myth. Even Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos don't do that, and they never did it. Okay. A lot of things are luck, and a lot of things are time and place. Okay. Not everybody's going to be a billionaire. How do I stay disciplined? I don't. But what I do try to do is prioritize what's important to keep the business going. You cannot focus in on business 24 hours a day. And maybe that's a generational thing. My grandparents, they worked at a factory for years, and that's what they did. My grandmother worked at Ford making brakes for 35 years. My other grandmother worked at Amatec where they made gauges, and they made gauges during the Second World War, and she stayed there until the early 90s. Their discipline was getting up and working in that factory and doing what they had to do. And I grew up with people like that around me, which their discipline was provide for the employer will provide for you. The world has changed now. My father and my uncle had a very successful construction business, and it's another generation, it's the baby boomers. And my uncle has since passed away, but their discipline was getting up and turning a wrench and building machinery because that's the kind of construction that they worked in. Their discipline was the focus in on, okay, I'm not college educated. Heck, my father didn't even have a high school diploma. Their discipline was, I got to turn this wrench in order to feed my kids. That was their discipline. I'm a Gen Xer. We're the last generation of the 20th century. You can throw some millennials in there, but really it's Gen X. We're the last adults of the 20th century. And we are an interesting crossbreed where we learned from these older generations when we started our working career, when we worked with my grandparents' generation. And we are going to be working with people that aren't even born yet by the time we retire.
Yeah.
So we bring this interesting aspect of work-life balance.
Yeah.
You have to understand that tomorrow is not promised. The graveyard is full of people with hopes and dreams that are dashed. So my discipline is, how do I want to be known? How do I want to take care of my children? I have two beautiful daughters. How do I want to take care of my family? And how do I want to be perceived? Because 100 years from now, none of this that I'm doing is going to matter.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to matter. So that's my discipline. And I try to instill that onto younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, that the world is fraught with disaster and things that you have to overcome. You're not always going to be disciplined. I am not always disciplined, but even the best plans don't work out. You can map out a big plan and say, this is how I'm going to attack something. Most people are reactive. There's no such thing as being proactive if you don't know what the problem is. And a lot of these sales guys sell you on this. A life is full of reactive things. Okay. So discipline of yourself is to stay true to yourself. And that's what I do.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you need a certain kind of discipline to be able to have that discipline anyways, right? Yeah.
I was very fortunate, and I know we were talking before the show. I had a grandfather that was in the Second World War. My father was a Marine as well. He was in Vietnam, and I was in the Army. And self-respect, discipline, little things like getting up out of bed and making your bed or taking a shower every day. A lot of people don't have that at home. I'm a firm believer, and this is also going to get me a lot of hate, but I'm a firm believer that military service, regardless of where you're from, I don't care if you're from the UK, the United States, India, wherever you may be from, military service helps, especially young men. Young men need that. They need that structure because we're a little more wild than ladies are. Ladies are a little bit more reserved and they're good sitting in the classroom. So I was very fortunate with that. And I grew up with people that lived that lifestyle. College isn't forever. Don't believe that myth. More people should maybe look to go into military service and maybe get into vocations. I've been really big into vocations. When I started my career, I wasn't a business owner. I was a welder. When I got out of the Army, I welded and installed conveyor equipment for my father's construction company. It taught me how to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. It taught me physical labor. It taught me the things of creation. I could take something and put it together and put it out there. But that's life discipline. I'm almost 50 years old. That's a lifetime of discipline and a lifetime of learning and failures that got me to where I'm at.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that everyone has a journey. And I think that, and as long as there is a lesson out of that journey for you that you're able to understand and that you're able to adapt, I think makes you the kind of person you are. So I was going to ask you, when you reflect on your journey, what's the one defining moment that changed everything for you? So I'm not sure. You've mentioned military service, you've mentioned coming out and doing vocation training, and then being a welder in your father's construction business or your family's construction business. So out of all of this, a journey of your life, what would be the most defining moment that you can think of or that you can talk about?
I would say, and then nobody's ever asked me this question, so this is the first time I've ever been asked, and I've done hundreds of interviews. I would say it was in 2005. I was 28 years old, and my father had a stroke. My brother called me and said, "Hey, I'm at the hospital with dad. He had a stroke." Apparently, they were in a car together, and I don't know if my dad was driving. I think he was driving, and my father had a stroke. And I had worked for years since I got out of school and was in the military. I worked for years side by side with my dad. Now, you see me, I'm almost 6 foot tall, 280 pounds. My father is 5'4", 130 pounds soaking wet, just a little man. So it's not the type of person you would figure would have a stroke. And he always worked. My father worked constantly, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And when he would sit on the couch, he would fall asleep. And my brother called me and said, well, Dad had a stroke. And I called my grandmother, who was still alive. It was my father's mother at the time. And I picked her up. and I drove to the hospital, and it was 11 o'clock at night when we got there. And my step grandfather, Fred, came out and he was sitting there. And the defining moment was I watched the guy that took care of me my whole life, decorated war hero, avid bowler, 300 games he bowled in his life. Started many youth sports programs, football, wrestling, new in the community, and brought hundreds of kids off the street. And these are things my father did. In one instance, that could have been gone from a stroke. And it was a defining moment in my life that said, you know what? There are other things other than work. When you watch the strongest guy in your life almost go in the blink of an eye, that was my moment. Said, you know what? I work too much. I would say that's the defining moment that made me change my outlook on how to run a business and how to be a father, how to be a friend, all that stuff. Yeah.
So it taught you because it was someone who was so close to you and someone who you admired your entire life for his strength and his fortitude and his and all of the things that he did in order to enhance the community, and you saw him in the condition that you did. It
Yeah.
taught you, or not taught you, but it probably gave you that moment of truth where you felt like, no, life work balance is so important. And thank you for sharing that, Sean. And like you mentioned, no one's ever asked you a question like that before. And I hope I haven't sparked any emotional. I'm sorry if I have. I think it's very the fact that it actually came to your mind and you were able to open up with that and a conversation with me when that happened. I'm thankful for that. And I do apologize if I've brought about any kind of emotional
Oh, no.
yeah.
No.
But yeah, no, I think sometimes there is something that's a trigger, and then you reflect and you say, oh my God, I never really thought about it like that, or I never really connected that that could have been the moment. Yeah. Okay, let's move on a little bit away from whatever I may have triggered. Let's talk about your travel channel, which seems to be
Okay.
so completely disconnected from everything that we've been talking about so far. So let's make it a little light now. And when did you actually start? I have seen a couple of the videos when I read that you also have a travel channel and you do it with someone. I'm assuming it's your wife or your partner
Soon to
or
be. Soon to be.
soon to be. Oh, wow, that's
Soon to
amazing.
be.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so when did
Um,
you, what kind of, two questions here. When did you start the channel? And prior to that, what encouraged you to do this? And then what is the channel all about?
so I'm a huge history lover. I've always been. I've traveled all over the United States going to historical sites. And until I started the travel channel with Shayna, I had only been out of the country a couple times, and that was mainly Canada. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so Canada's not that far away from Pennsylvania. And I had been to Jamaica when I was on my honeymoon with my first wife, but that was it. But I've been a history guy. So any place that was maybe an old building from 100 years ago or some battlefield that I could go to, like Gettysburg. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. So if you
Yeah,
know anything about the United States, Philadelphia is ripe with history.
yeah,
You couldn't walk out the door without seeing a monument someplace, kind of like London.
yeah.
And so I'd always made it a point to travel. And then about December of 2023, Shane and I came up with the idea of the Kling connection. Shayna a very accomplished swimmer in college, and she had traveled around the United States and tried out for the and so she had a lot of time traveling the world, and I hadn't. So she said, "You've always been talking about going to London. That was my dream, to do Christmas in London." She says, "Let's put something together. Let's go on a little cruise. Let's just try a cruise first together to see how we travel." So we went on this cruise, and ironically, you couldn't plan this happening. We went on the cruise, and we were telling my mom about the cruise, and my mom goes, "That That's the cruise ship that we booked. And we didn't know that my mom was on the cruise, the same cruise as us. What's the irony? So did our first set of videos on my cell phone around doing these little islands in the Caribbean, and we fell in love with it. So we started booking more and more trips, and then we went to places in Florida, places in Georgia, and started shooting a video. And then we went to London, and then we drove across the country. We drove from Florida to California and back. That's the series of videos we're releasing right now. And we just fell in love with it. She is very good at planning the trips out. We tend to disagree a little bit on where we like to stay. She likes the Airbnb thing. I like the hotel thing. Hey, she's the boss, so we stay where she wants to stay. I surrender that part. But yeah, but we try to find neat little things. She books the excursions, and it's just grown. And last year we did a video on our trip to London, and it went viral. Before that, we were just not getting lots of people to subscribe. And then all of a sudden, boom, this trip to London explodes. And next thing we have 53,000 subscribers, and people are contacting us. Hey, can you do affiliates with us, or we can be your sponsor? And it really grew up. It blew out of nothing.
That's amazing. Yeah, you, like you mentioned earlier, you wear multiple hats, and I can see now what you mean when you say that you wear multiple hats. Thank you so much, Sean. It's just been a very riveting conversation, and the fact that where can anyone who wants to, two things. One is get a hold of a copy of your book. Two is if they want to reach out to you outside of your YouTube channel, where can they reach out to you?
You can find me on my website, seankling.com. It's my name. You can go there and you can get a copy of the book. There's all the links to the different places I sell on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and Walmart and everything else. You can go there, and you can also, there's a contact form there if you're interested in speaking with me or have any questions about the book or anything like that. I'm also on social media, all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, all that. You can find me there. And as far as the travel channel, you can go to YouTube or Rumble and just look up the Kling Connection. We're actually exploding really big on Rumble. If you're not familiar with Rumble, it's a YouTube type platform, and we've really been growing there like crazy. So you can go there and check us out. Or clingconnection.com. If you're interested in travel, you can go there as well. So those are the two big websites. I own multiple businesses, but those are the two big ones if you want to get a hold of me. Those would be the best places.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that information, Sean. I'm sure people will be interested in reaching out to you and for coaching or for trying to understand how to have a work-life balance, or essentially for you to mentor them. And yeah, and thank you for sharing your very close to your heart personal defining moment, and I really appreciate that. And it's just been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being a part of Melting Pot.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.